Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And we've got a Week 2 Giants-Cardinals preview, Justin. Giants coming off of a 40-0 loss. That being said, man, I don't care about it. That game's over. It happened. We evaluated it. They cleaned it up. There is no excuses for losing to this Cardinals team. Even if Andrew Thomas doesn't play, which we'll talk about. I don't want to hear about Jonathan Gannon's scheme. Justin, they are simply a team full of bad players. They are less talented than the Giants at essentially every single position, except for maybe safety. Those are the facts. They are a less talented team on essentially almost across the board, besides the right side of their offensive line as well. The Giants, there's no way they should lose this game. I don't care if Andrew Thomas doesn't play.
Hey, Bobby Skinner. There's no time like the present for the season to start now, right? I agree with you, man. I agree with you. This is a team that is actively trying to tank in the Arizona Cardinals. And yeah, the players are playing hard and they know what's up. They know what the deal is. And this is an organization with the decisions that they made this offseason to trade away picks and to trade away players. This is an organization that is actively not trying to win football games. I don't care how hard they played the Washington Commanders last week, which maybe the Commanders are even hyped up a little bit in the first place. But I don't want to be walking away from week 2 because the Cardinals played another tough game against the Giants, saying that maybe the Giants are an overhyped team, because that's a conversation that's already happening. Beat the shit out of the Cardinals. Let's go 1-1 and head into, stay in that West Coast trip with some optimism heading into Thursday Night Football. That's the goal.
There is very little talent on this Cardinals team. Some of the stats from their Week 1 game are inflated. This is a game, Justin, because the Giants just lost 40-0 to the Cowboys, right? The Cowboys are a much more talented team. Some weird stuff happened in that. A blocked field goal for a touchdown. A pick six on a popped-up interception. So some things happen. So that's Week 1, 40-0. That's as ugly as it gets. This Cardinals team, to feel good about the Giants coming out of this game, you have to beat them handedly. You have to be you have to be going into the fourth quarter and have no worry of losing this game. The only way you lose is if you have the biggest collapse of all time, and even then, I don't think this Cardinals team is possible of putting any team in the biggest collapse of all time unless they literally just start throwing the ball backwards. This is not a talented team. So we'll get into all of it, Justin. First, this episode was brought to you by some special people, not people's people. David Gosling.
Familiar name.
It's what's the actor's name?
Ryan
Gosling. And then just Michael. No
just
last name. Michael, motorcycle, turn the key and watch him pee. My cousin Michael, who's in prison now.
Sure.
In 3rd grade, someone said that to him, and Michael just punched him right in the face. Justin, who are these people?
And then he went to prison. Patreon.com/TalkOfGiants. $2 a month plus some other tiers. You get to hang out with us live while we record the shows. Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers in the mail. Plus, a couple times a month, there's some shirt raffles you can be part of. Patreon.com/TalkOfGiants. Appreciate our patrons. And also, just because there's not a home game for a couple weeks doesn't mean that you can't get your tickets. Talking Giants Tailgate Crew, we had a really, really fun time against the Cowboys, hopefully against the Seahawks Monday Night Football. It will be a better outcome. It'll be more of a fun game, but the tailgates are always fun. So check the link in our description and the show notes for the link to the tickets. Buy them now, so you're not waiting last minute.
And I started putting my game notes on the Patreon, which I thought was a nice little cool. I've been keeping better notes this year, where it's hey, the Giants, the coverages they use, and it's all manual stuff and a bunch of stuff. So check it out. Before we get into breaking down this game and the Cardinals and what the Giants can do versus them, we are recording this a little early on Thursday, so we don't have the injury report on Andrew Thomas for Thursday, unfortunately. Thomas didn't play or practice on Wednesday, but basically said it's there's no long-term hamstring injury there. It's kind of just how does he feel with pain management. Are you in the Andrew Thomas should play? Here's where I say, Justin, is unless going out there and playing one is going to harm it a lot more, and there's a big risk of that, or if the doctors really thought, hey, an extra 4 days of rest will make this injury go away, and it won't be something he's dealing with. Unless those two things are true, I think Andrew Thomas should play.
Yeah, I agree with you, because Really, like, if there's no benefit of sitting him, then why should you sit him? But if there is a if there is a benefit from a pain management standpoint, I want Andrew Thomas for games 3 to 17 versus a week 2 game against the Cardinals, which you should win anyway. If he will benefit from the pain management side of it by sitting, then I do think he should. Now that may change the whole, should the Giants still beat the shit out of the Cardinals? They should still beat them, even without Andrew Thomas, but maybe the offensive game plan will inevitably change if Andrew Thomas is out. And that's the sad part.
It's hard to run an offense without Andrew Thomas.
But against the Cardinals, you should still be able to run an offense.
Yeah, and again, it's gonna be up to Andrew Thomas at the end of the day, and I think we can trust Andrew Thomas will make the right decision.
Yeah,
Whether that's, I think of the Dallas game in 2021. Everyone thought he was going to play. He sits out, so only Thomas knows. But we know he's a warrior. Also with him, and he mentioned this too. Like, it's the position he plays. The hamstring is not like, a wide receiver or a corner where it totally hampered. Like, the interception, he's limping. Now, here's what I would give. Like, you have Andrew Thomas. You have a strict do not try and make a tackle if there's a turnover rule. Like, literally, because he's that important. Where if they have an interception, you sit down on the ground. Do not chase him, because that's when you saw him really limping. You didn't see it in pass pro, really, and he was dealing with it in the run game. But at the end of the day, I do think Andrew Thomas should play this Sunday.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it, Justin. We'll start with the Giants offense versus the Cardinals defense and the passing offense. The 6 sacks number has been floating around with the Arizona Cardinals. Like, hey, they sacked the Commanders 6 times. Here's the thing. Their pass rush is not there. And they live out of quarters, zone coverage. They don't really blitz. The pass rush is not there. Like, versus the Commanders, they had 6 sacks, 2 QB hits, and 7 pressures. Howell was not even in the top half of the NFL of quarterbacks pressured last week. And the 6 sacks, 2 were on the sideline for zero yards, where it's like, Howell scrambles. 1 was just literally a run play where they messed up the handoff, or there's an RPO where, Howell went to go throw it, doesn't, tucks it in, runs. There's another one where a tight end gets beat. There's a miscommunication on a slide protection. And then the one that was like a good one was a 3rd and 10 cover 0 look, where it was a bad play call and Howell spins out of it and gets a sack.
And before you keep going, just to add a stat to it, even though Sam Howell did take 6 sacks, there was no QB in the NFL that had more time before a pressure, according to PFF, than Sam Howell. And it wasn't even close. Like, Sam Howell, time to pressure was around 3 seconds, and like Deshaun Watson was a little bit more than 2.8, and then every other QB, time to pressure is like before 2.8 seconds. So Cardinals pass rush, even though they did get the sacks, was not an imposing force last week against the Commanders.
No, I thought it was a bad pass rush versus the Commanders. Now, that being said, we just saw what the Giants went through, right? And again, the Dallas and the Cardinals front are on totally opposite ends. And play styles are different too. But you also can't go into a game like, oh yeah, we
can't take anybody for granted. We cannot take anybody for granted.
We're gonna block these guys up and dominate them, But if there's any team where they can block up front, it has to be this Cardinals team that you're placing. You're facing a lot of good pass rushes this season. The Cardinals aren't one of that. They rotate a lot of guys through there. Like 11 guys got real snaps on the front for the Cardinals last week. Dennis Gardeck, who's like this undersized edge, he is a guy, probably their best pass rusher, right? Even though he's undersized, not the most athletic, but he works moves. He has spins. He has good hands. He did have a sack versus a tight end, but it was a good play, and he took advantage of it. And then Cam Thomas, the defensive lineman out of San Diego State last year, I thought he had a solid rookie season despite not getting a lot of playing time. Now, he played bad in that week 1 game, but I think he's a player. If there was one player who I think could take advantage of the Giants' right side, it'd probably be Cam Thomas. But again, they don't have this rush that's just going to put pressure on you. If Glowinski and Neal don't have at least solid games, then man, it's worse than what we thought after this past game. You
want to hear something crazy about Dennis Gardeck and his NFL career? He had 94 total snaps, 79 pass rush snaps in 2020. He had 7 sacks. In like 400 snaps in 2021 and 2022, he had 1 total sack. And then this past week in 15 pass rush snaps, he had 2 sacks. So like crazy NFL career for Dennis Gardeck so far. And his rookie year was in 2018 too. Sioux Falls, Sioux Falls is where he went to college. Where is that?
North Dakota, I believe.
Whoa, North Dakota. You're familiar with the Northwest
South Dakota.
United
That's
States.
where I punched Dallas Goedert in the face.
It's true. White dude with heavy metal hair, by the way. So I kind of love this player. But
yeah, and they rotate through those guys. There's a
lot
like
of
I said,
rotation going on.
Like and I think that's just a part of like, hey, they don't have dudes up front, so they get everyone reps. It'll be interesting to see if like a BJ Ojolari, who probably got the least amount of snaps for them, if they try and give him more. Who obviously me and you both like coming out of out of last year's draft.
He had a
class.
QB hit last week.
Yeah. As far as the way they play with coverage and pass stuff, they don't blitz much, Justin, and they live in off-zone quarters, cover 4 coverage, right? So you think of that, you think of like the teams, the Vikings and stuff. But I will say where they're different, Justin, is they are very aggressive in their zone, trying to make plays, right? They're not simply like, the Vikings or the Packers last year where they just leave or the Colts, where they just leave everything in front of you and they're like, okay with you doing that. They play zone, but they are aggressive out of it. Like they have eyes on the QB, and they are trying to get at it. And now the bad part of that is like, hey, they jump plays and they can make plays. The good part is you can get them out of position, right? Like there was a post wheel, which is a combination that the Giants love to run. They ran it a few times versus Dallas, so a lot harder to run versus man coverage, but versus zone, where they leave the wheel wide open, like the outside corner bites on the post. And wide open. Sam Howell's looking straight at it and just doesn't throw the ball for some reason. He still completed like a 15-yard dig on the backside of it. But they keep eyes on the QB. They also keep the middle of the field open in that zone, right? 134 of 189 yards past the line of scrimmage were in the middle of the field below 20 yards. So this is a game where I think the Giants, what they like to do on offense, where they flood zones and stuff, I think it's going to be really good because they don't really rotate it too well. They don't, like the Cardinals don't disguise really much of what they're doing. And for a coaching staff like the Giants, I really think they're going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I hope. I think this is where, hey, Darren Waller, I think we're going to say it every week. This is where Darren Waller comes in. Even Darren Waller's hamstring injury just seems like that's going to be something that he's just going to have to live with throughout the year. Doesn't seem like he's going to miss any time, but he's just going to fight through it. So this is where like Darren Waller attacking over the middle of the field, Daniel Bellinger attacking over the middle of the field. I even think of a guy like Paris Campbell, who has throughout his NFL career, especially last year, he attacked the middle of the field more than any other receiver on the team did last year. So that's where I'm really thinking that this is gonna come in.
And I think Hodgins can have like a solid game with his quick route running and that stuff over the middle of the field. And again, I think like you could even see like a couple of Bellinger plays where he's wide open and underneath and has a 10-15 yards because again, you can flood those zones. They're going to be aggressive on the over top stuff and it's going to leave stuff underneath. They don't blitz much, like we said. Now, if you get in a 3rd down and long, they'll get into those cover 0 looks and they'll send some blitzes. Like they got a fumble return for a touchdown on one of those. But like I said, they just don't disguise much. Like even if they're running a normal blitz, you'll see their safeties creep down and get past that Mendoza line that kind of tips it off like they're sending a blitz. So for a QB like Daniel Jones, who is very pre-snap oriented, like kind of has a good feel for that type of stuff, and a criticism of him is he needs to be, not so pre-snap oriented. A Cardinals team like this, at least what they showed in 1 week of coaching with a new staff, they get into what they do and they want to run it. And it also, but I think it's going to, even if they do throw some looks, because they rush 4, because their pass rush should not be relentless, it's going to leave lanes open for DJ to make some plays with his legs. I mean, even Sam Howell made some plays with his legs in week 1.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going into this game, the Giants should just be able to run their offense, right? And it all predicates on Andrew Thomas, like we said at the start, but they should just be able to run the offense that they want to run. Or, especially what we saw the first drive of the game is that they were very run heavy. If they're giving you light boxes and they're only loading up 4, then that leaves areas for Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley to be able to run the ball. And do you want to go there next, or do you have anything else to say about the Cardinals' pass defense?
Well, the other thing I will say about the pass is they're a little nasty. They're going to try and get some hits in at the end of the whistle and stuff. Son. So be careful of that type of stuff.
Nasty like dirty.
They also like to keep 3 safeties on the field, and that leads into the rushing offense, Justin. Now, they held the Commanders in check. Like, they didn't give up any big runs.
I also don't think the Commanders' rushing offense is very good, and I think it's overrated every year.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's true. But again, they didn't give up any big runs. They play from light boxes, like you said, and even within that, they'll have they had 3 safeties on the field a lot. But what they do is they are very aggressive. Like Kazir White, he had 10 tackles for them. He is downhill. Like, he's aggressive as hell to fit up in the run. Like, so I think our interior, and we saw it versus the Dallas, they can lean on them a little bit, but you got to get off to those, and you'll get push on those doubles, but you got to get off those doubles quick because their linebackers are quick trigger downhill trying to bust stuff up, and Buda Baker's aggressive in those things. But especially if Thomas doesn't play, but even if Andrew Thomas does play, Justin, and this goes back to the Dallas game, and you're playing this 2-high zone team and the Cardinals, and you're playing the 49ers next week, the Giants, I think, do need to get back to wanting to be a team that runs the ball, right? And this is we talked about this on the mailbag pod, but you can do it this week. But hey, teams' adjustments they're not like still playing the way it did in the middle of the season, right? And people say, oh, they got away in the run at the end of the season. Well, because they had to, because teams were playing them heavy in the run. They had to get to a quick game drop back passing. Teams were playing their play action. So teams are not really, at least the Cowboys, we're not playing the run heavy versus the Giants. There's a play where I talk about where it's like the linebackers literally bail. But what they are doing is playing their play action on 1st and 10, like having their linebackers bailing, following the motion and stuff. So I would be, if I'm the Giants, this isn't even like an individual game plan. This is like, hey, this is how we're going to start the season, and kind of similar to last year. I'm going to run this ball until they stop letting us run the ball. Right? Until teams start game planning for the run again. Yeah. And
with that, I'll turn it into like a little bit of a stat thing. You got to win on 1st and 2nd down. And if that means that you need to avoid negative plays and avoid third and long, running the ball is the best way to do it, especially if they're leaving light boxes. If it makes sense for you to run the ball, run the ball. And I think that's something that we've said for like 2 years now. Because when you get into 3rd and long, I think no matter what the team, even if the Cardinals have a good pass rush or a bad pass rush, they're going to show cover 0 looks, and they're going to try and take advantage of what is a bad offensive line, and then therefore replicating what the Dallas Cowboys did against the Giants. So this is not every week. It's just going to be, this is not a team, this Giants team, they cannot consistently get in 3rd and long. They just cannot flat out do it, especially with that right side of the offensive line. They can't. And
this is more of a big picture conversation, and because it's not really specific to the Cardinals, because I think the Giants could operate a lot of good 1st down passing versus the Cardinals. But you have the 49ers down the pike, the Eagles, you got some teams with good pass rush. We saw it, man. Running play action and stuff on 1st down got them in these 2nd and 19s where people are like, oh, they abandoned the run in the first half. It's like, not really. Saquon had 11 carries in the first half. Breida had a couple, but there was a couple drives where they didn't run the ball. Well, one of those drives was a 1st and 10 play action. It's a sack, 2nd and 19. When you're going to start running the ball then, and you end up going 3 and out.
It's a fine line between, you're not going to lose 9 yards when you run the ball, right? You're more likely to lose 9 yards when you throw the ball on a 1st and 2nd down. So you don't want to be running the ball on 1st and 2nd down out of fear of a huge negative play. But if the running game is efficient, like it was week 1 against Dallas, because they were literally letting you do it, then that is the approach and that's the game script that you should take. That's our point.
Yeah, take what the defenses give you.
Correct.
And as teams, there was an article written about how the big play is dead in the NFL because of the way as much as people don't want to admit it, you know what the best way to get back to it is start running the damn ball. Running the damn ball. Justin, do you have anything on the Giants offense versus the Cardinals defense before we flip to the other side of the ball?
Big play isn't dead. It's now just more important than ever because defenses are actively trying to avoid offenses from getting big plays. So it's not dead. It's just more important than ever to get because that's like what defenses are actively trying to prevent. No, run your damn offense, run the damn ball, be efficient on first and second down, avoid third down. Whichever team faces third down more is going to lose the game.
Let's talk about their offense and our defense, Justin. They scored 16 points in game 1 of the NFL season, right? Not bad for Josh Dobbs and all the talent they have. 10 of the 16 points they scored came off of 1 yard. There was a fumble return touchdown where Sam Howell was kind of a dummy. And then they had an interception where Sam Howell had guys open, doesn't throw it. The ball slips out of Sam Howell's hand. They get an interception. They get a 3 and out off of 1 yard to get a field goal. So 10 out of their 16 points came off of 1 yard of offensive production. That being said, they're not going to be a team that wants to spread it all. Like, if they can do it successfully, they're going to want to run the ball. Like, and they have a good back in James Conner. Like, he breaks tackles. He likes to bounce. You know, they've got a good mix of gap and zone. I think they work their double teams really well, so it's going to be up on the front too. And they're going to use a lot of smoke and mirrors and motion and stuff to try and keep the linebackers occupied. They'll get Hollywood and Rondale, mix in with the reverse game, like those two combined for 41 rushing yards on 3 carries. But even more so, they're going to use them in the backfield for fake action to get your linebackers thinking. So this has got to be a game where these linebackers are dialed in. Okereke will be. McFadden, to me, I know he got some praise after this game, but when the Cowboys ran gap runs, he still had some struggles getting into the right spot. So, like, this is going to be an offense because they know what their limitations are. They're going to throw a lot of action at you to try and, operate an offense.
I also think they're just going to make things easy for Josh Dobbs. And you saw some of the more successful plays last Sunday against the Commanders is when you just had receivers running kind of comeback routes near the sideline. I think there were 4 really successful plays where Dobbs threw the ball past the sticks. And all 4 of those plays, he had 2 on the right sideline, 2 on the left sideline. That's where the ball was caught. And if you can see the spray chart, that's where it was. So, hey, Trey Hawkins, Deontay Banks, let's go. You're gonna have outside receivers like Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, who you got to be ready for those plays. They're gonna do some stuff over the middle of the field too, especially if they're playing off. I think, Bobby, you were just saying that if they're playing off and they're not pressing up at the line, then Hollywood Brown's going to run a little slant, and you got to be ready to come up and try and make a play on that too. So they're going to keep things very simple. And as Wink Martindale likes to do against really bad quarterbacks, he likes to show these elaborate blitzes. And, we throw curveballs, we throw changeups, as Research Rick likes to tweet out. This is going to be a game where that's going to happen, and I think the Cardinals are going to fight back against that with the quick passing game and screens. And that's where the Giants linebackers, these Giants corners, and these Giants secondary players, they have to be ready to pounce on those screens and really keep an eye out for that so they don't go for big plays.
And that's been a weakness in the Wink Martindale defense is a screen. They ran 7 screens last week. Now, they weren't successful. They only got 7 yards on those 7 screens. I mean, basically, their wins in the pass game came from nothing traditional, right? Like the screens. They run a decent amount of play. Like they run similar play action stuff like the Giants did last year. And any type of chunk play they got in the passing game came from that, where you had the over route and they were able to get it. Or, a guy left open in the flats. But any deep targets came from play action. And they'll try and leak Rondale Moore out of the backfield and stuff like that. Their drop back passing, though, is very simple. Zach Ertz is the number 1 option for Josh Dobbs. He had 6 catches on 10 targets, only 21 yards. It's a lot of quick game to Ertz on some predetermined plays. And Ertz is still a good route runner. But Dobbs is a little inaccurate too. But Ertz is not getting the separation he once got.
No.
And Hollywood Brown, like you mentioned on the sideline, he's kind of going to run some basic slant curl out, depending on the coverage you get, depending on cushion or press. And both those guys, out of all receivers in the NFL who qualified, Zach Ertz had the 3rd lowest amount of separation on targets. Hollywood Brown had the 5th lowest, which, again, isn't even an indictment on those 2 players. It's kind of schematic-based where they lived out of the quick game. So, Wink Martindale, if this defense is going to be solid this year, this is a game where you should be going into this game we're not letting them score more than 10.
Yep.
Because you have Josh Dobbs, who one is not a good quarterback, but he's not a good quarterback who's had like 9 or 10 practices with this team. Their most targeted player is an older Zach Ertz. Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore are talented players, right? So those guys can do stuff, but Josh Dobbs doesn't really have the arm or the talent to take advantages of that, and the coaching staff knows it, so they're working a lot of quick game stuff.
And you better not let this team run all over you either.
No, absolutely not. Like, I think they can run the ball decently, but you cannot let them, like, if they start, like, hey, we're running the ball, that's a really bad indictment on this Giants defense and the Ashawn Robinsons, the Nachos of the world. So yeah, I think Wink Martindale is probably like licking his chops. Like, this is going to be a game where we're going to throw some stuff. Because honestly, Dallas week 1, Wink Martindale did not throw very much at Dallas. And again, a lot happened in that game to where it got out of hand. But there was maybe a couple third downs where Wink threw some stuff at Dallas. But for the most part, it was some basic cover 1, 4 or 5 man rush. And I think this game, they're going to really go all out on this team and try and force them into fumbles and mistakes. And that will happen with Dobbs, because if the first read is not there, he is really off. But again, this is kind of like what their offense is quick game. Ertz over the middle of the field, and then Hollywood Brown on the sideline. It's very like, I mean, and I get it, right? It's not even a big shot on Josh Dobbs. Like,
again, they're trying to actively tank. They literally cut Colt McCoy. They're shutting Kyler Murray down, who wouldn't have been ready by week 2 anyway. But by what they're doing with their quarterback situation, this is a team that is actively trying to lose games.
Yep. That being said, I was very surprised the Commanders didn't get a lot of pressure on Dobbs. And it wasn't just because of their playing like, no one on their front overwhelmed them, right? Like, they made some plays. But again, they have DJ Humphries and Paris Johnson, the rookie, at the tackle. So their tackles are solid. But the interior, you got Will Hernandez, those types of guys. And they have, like, Deron Payne, I thought it was the worst I ever seen him on film in a game.
Wow.
And Jonathan Allen made some plays, right? But they were kind of more towards the end of the game. And for the Jonathan Allen standard of being great, which is like the same standard as the Dexter Lawrence's, I would have liked this. Actually, I wouldn't have liked them because we have to play them twice. But if I was their coaching staff, I'd be like, well, I think you should have overwhelmed them up front, and they kind of didn't. So that's like you can't Dex and Leo. Like, this is a challenge. I mean, Leonard, like, we'll talk about it. I might talk about it later. But
you might talk about it later.
These, like, the interior, like, that should be the challenge no matter who you're placing every week. Is like, you should go up and overwhelm them unless you're playing the Eagles.
Yeah.
Which even then, I'm interested. I want to watch some film on Cam Jurgens. He's their new right guard. I'm sure he's just amazing because that's the way the Eagles and Jeff Stoutland do it. But, like, you should be overwhelming guys on a week-in, week-out basis if you're Dex and Leo Williams.
Yeah, I guess some other names that maybe we won't talk about later. It was really cool to see Xavier McKinney have a great game against the Cowboys and make some plays in, like, all facets and all areas of the game. So, you think maybe he's like 1v1 versus Zach Ertz?
It'll be interesting to see what they do, because I can see that. I also can see Wink being like, oh, they're gonna go after Zach Ertz. We're gonna put Pinnock on him, and we're gonna have guys underneath trying to cut some of that stuff off, because that's something that Wink does, man. Like, I think back to week 2 versus the Panthers, right? We're thinking like, all right, Adore on DJ Moore. But instead, they put Flott and Moreau on DJ Moore and had Adore shut down the other side and then doubled stuff over the top. So we'll find out early in that game, but I'm interested to see. But if McKinney is one-on-one with Zach Ertz, he should be shutting that down. He should have a couple more pass breakups like he did in week 1. Yeah, like McKinney should be winning the Zach Ertz one-on-one battle.
This is also the first game where you won't have, the team's best receiver in the slot. I guess if you could say in the Cardinals, Hollywood Brown is their best receiver. So,
yes.
What does the cornerback alignment really look like? I say you do have your best 3 players on the field with Adoree Jackson, Trey Hawkins, and Deonte Banks. So I'd say kind of keep it the way it is. But, hey, does Darnay Holmes work in a little bit more playing time against a really small Rondale Moore? We'll see. We'll see how that kind of forms up, shapes up.
Yeah, and you mentioned Rondale Moore. They're gonna move him around a ton and try and create explosives because he is an explosive type player, and they're gonna I think of Gannon, the pew, pew, pew. But they actually do try and create a lot of stuff for him, whether it's handoffs, like they leaked him out on a wheel route, screens. So they're gonna try and get the ball in his hands to get their big plays. Yeah, I mean, anything else on that stuff before we bring Danny King on for segments?
Dominate, start to finish.
Dominate. Again, I want to go into this fourth quarter being happy, not thinking anything about the outcome of this game.
This should be a Josh Dobbs has 35 attempts in this game. Daniel Jones should have like 24 to 26. Like that. And then Saquon Barkley should have over 20 rushing attempts, not solely because we're just running him and pounding him to the ground, but third, fourth quarter, we're winning, and Saquon Barkley, we're giving him 20 rushing attempts. That's what the game should look like. Because we have it handily in control.
I agree. I'm checking the chat to see if we got any updates on Andrew Thomas. I don't think that we did. Before we bring on Danny King, Justin, I want to talk to you about. Why don't you check those updates while I read this? Check the reporters. Today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. If you don't know what SeatGeek is, they're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple. As simple as Simple Man Radio. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the number one rated ticketing app. The number one rated ticketing app on the number one rated Talk Giants podcast. How about that? There are more than 70,000 events in every single day on SeatGeek, including sports, concerts, festivals, and my favorite thing, more. More is always better. They always want to make sure that you are getting a good deal. So when you're on the app, look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. We've got the hookup. Use code GIANTS for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code GIANTS. Click the link in the description to download the app. You'll be glad you did. All right, we now welcome on Danny King for segments. Weatherman Dan. Dan, they're out in Arizona. What's the weather going to be like?
It's going to be 100 degrees on Sunday.
But not humid though, right?
Not let me pull up the humidity because that's something I can do real quick. I was looking. I'm assuming the dome's going to be closed because obviously
you know what they say about assuming makes an ass out of you and me.
That is true. It's going to be 28% humidity, so not too bad, but just 100 degrees. September, kind of crazy, but that's Arizona. Why do people live out there? I quite frankly don't know.
I went there.
Oh yeah, you did. You went there for the Super Bowl. How was Arizona? Was that a nice place?
It was not a great. It was fine. It was a fine area. It was very flat. It was very square, rectangular, and the stadium was cool. Stadium was fun.
Yeah,
Let's stop beating around the bush, Danny. You got the weather unbelievably wrong last week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will be honest. That was.
I wish I could get paid to be wrong all the time, like a weather person.
That was a rough one. There was no one thought it was gonna rain. The weather channel back home literally said it's gonna be.
No, people did think it was going to rain.
Yeah, it was in the forecast. You were 19-0 last year on weather predictions. Now you're 0-1.
Giants started out tough. I started out tough. We're gonna rebound this week. That's how it works. Because
the only people who had a worse week one performance than the Giants was Danny King's weather report.
Can't win them all. But guess what? I do got a good trivia question.
Hit us with it.
Transition.
So back in 2017, the Giants played the Cardinals. It was on Christmas Eve. The more you know. They unfortunately lost that game 23-0. However, a Giants player had 2 interceptions in that game. 2017. Can you name the player that had picked off the Cardinals twice?
I think it was Janoris Jenkins.
Justin, do you have an answer?
Oh, sugar.
2017.
Brandon Merriweather was not on the team. He also never did anything. Man, 2017 was the one season where I really phased out. I don't know. My answer is I don't know.
It was not Janoris Jenkins. The answer was indeed our good old friend Ross Cockrell.
Oh, I knew that because when we signed Ross Cockrell for a day.
Yeah, that was the legendary. We loved Ross Cockrell. 2 picks that game. In his 1 year with the Giants, he had 50 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 11 passes defended.
That bothers me because I knew that. I've put that on social media before. Okay, all right, we screwed up. All right, let's get into fantasy. So what we do is every week we do a fantasy draft of the Giants players and their opponent. Good competition, and it's a good way to highlight some of the matchups are upcoming in the week. After the defending champion, myself, will be picking first, and I am in first place with 37.3 point outing last week.
You planned this.
Justin is going to be picking third, but he's second with 16.2 points behind. He could double his score after week 1, still be down by 5. And then Danny is less than a point behind Justin in third place. He'll be picking second. And again, this is why you think things through. This is why I picked third last week, because I knew
you thought through that the Cowboys would dominate the Giants, and you're like, oh, I can't wait for that since I'm going to be ahead in fantasy. Congratulations.
No, it was about this week when there's not a lot of fun, good players. It was about this week. And so with the first pick, I'm taking Saquon Barkley.
Oh, wow.
Easy. I mean, this is the easiest pick of the year. Like, there's no one on the Cardinals that is competing for that first pick. And Waller could go off, but he only had 3 for 36 in the game. He's dealing with some injury and stuff. So I'm going. We didn't know that at the time of the recording last week. So Saquon, 1-1, easy. I think we're going to run the ball a lot this week. Danny, who is your pick second?
Now, see, like you said, wasn't the best week for him, but this week you know what? Hang on. I was thinking something, but then I had like an epiphany. You know what I'm saying?
Know what I'm saying?
You know what? I'm gonna take James Conner.
I think that's the right pick. They're going to give him the rock. He's a good back. They're going to get him a bunch of passes
Waller
in the screens. I think that's the right pick.
I was about to take Waller, but then that epiphany hit me, and I was like, wait, James Conner's still on this team. So I am going to take James Conner here, because after that's when it, to me, it gets kind of fuzzy with the Niners.
Yeah,
Cardinals.
Yeah, I had Conner number 2 on the big board. He's their number 1 running back. Their back at running back had negative yards last week, and they run a ton of screens and they run a bunch of quick games. So yeah, I think Conner's the number 2 pick, because I think he's just going to get 5 points just simply off of the receptions he gets. All right, Justin, you got back-to-back picks.
Darren Waller. It's going to happen. It's got to happen. Come on.
Got it.
It's the game to do it. Let's not keep saying this. I just had a really scary thought of, remember the first year of Kenny Galladay? We were like, come on, it's got to happen. We're going to take him in the fantasy draft because it's going to happen this week, right? I don't want to get to that point, so don't go to that dark place. And then I'll take Hollywood Brown on the come around in the second round. Number 1 receiver for the Cardinals. Could be going up against a rookie. Maybe you could take advantage of him for a hot sec. He's going to get some catches. And then it gets really dark after this.
You took Hollywood before any Giants receiver. That's interesting. I do have that is my. We went according to the Bobby Big Board, so good job, guys. You guys are knowing ball a little better this year. Hopefully, you guys can close the gap. Yeah, but Hollywood is obviously their number. He's their best. He is their best weapon on offense. It's just the issue for me is I don't know if Dobbs can take advantage of the weapon that Hollywood Brown can be. All right, Danny, who's your second pick?
Yeah, now I'm sitting here. I feel like I might be overthinking it in a way, because I'm leaning one way, but he didn't really have the best of games. So I think I should just understand what happened last week was just a fluke with the Giants overall. So I'm going to take a Giants wide receiver here, and that guy, I'm stuck between Slayton and Hodgins, because Slayton at least caught majority of his passes. Hodgins couldn't catch one last week. I'm gonna go Darius Slayton.
Darius Slayton, Giants wide receiver 1.
I wanted to take Hodgins, but I just DJ at least was able to complete passes to Darius Slayton last week.
Yeah, I actually have Hodgins ahead of Slayton this week on the big board, because I think there's going to be a lot of quick game versus their zone and stuff, and I think that's where Hodgins is going to be his best. I actually have someone ahead of Isaiah Hodgins, but I'm going to put Isaiah Hodgins as my second pick, just so it's a little Giants propaganda, and I have back-to-back picks. So I am picking Isaiah Hodgins, and then I'm taking the guy who got 10 targets for the Cardinals despite not getting very many yards, and Zach Ertz. He did get open on a stick and nod last week, and Dobbs missed him for the touchdown. If there's anyone who can get a receiving touchdown on that team, it's going to be Zach Ertz. They want to get him the ball, so I'm going Zach Ertz with pick number 3. Danny, your third pick.
After that, I think he's not having a bad game. I think he would like free catches for 33 yards. I know there's nothing groundbreaking in the NFL, but I'm going to take Rondale Moore here. I think Rondale Moore could maybe Josh Dobbs leads free catches, 33 yards. Had a big play. Give me Rondale Moore. Let's see what Rondale Moore can do.
We got 8 picks down. The top 8 of my big board are gone. A little bit of different order, but not by much. Justin, your last 2 picks.
My last 2 picks. I mean, I'll go Paris Campbell first.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he's going to get some decent amount of catches. We talked about working in the middle of the field during the first part of the show, and I think Paris Campbell coming out of the slot could be a part of that. And then I think this guy got some catches last week, and this was a guy that we were talking about.
Senior Bowl.
Coming out of the draft, and that's Michael Wilson. Yeah, I'm going to go with Michael Wilson over Trey McBride.
He had a good Senior Bowl, but he's just always been injured.
He did have a nice catch last week.
Yeah, I think he had their biggest receiving. Actually, not their biggest one, but they had one on the sideline that was really nice.
Yep.
All right, Danny, what's your last pick?
Oh man, oh man. I don't really know where I want to go here because I did. God, am I really about to take a?
I think there's an easy pick.
Obviously, now you just put the pressure on me 10 times because of that.
There's a super easy pick.
Where's the? I don't know where I'm going with this. If I'm being honest with you, gentlemen, I'm probably just gonna take. Really choking under pressure. You have to cut this out, Justin. My bad.
Nope, not cutting anything.
I'll just take Trey McBride.
Yeah, that's the super easy pick.
Is it though? When I can get Jalen Hyatt last in the draft?
Ooh, why not?
At some point, Jalen Hyatt's gonna pop.
I was thinking Jalen Hyatt, but I was like, I'll just go with McBride.
So to recap, I have Saquon Barkley, Isaiah Hodgins, Zach Ertz, and Jalen Hyatt. Danny, you have James, and I'm in first place. Danny, you're in last. You have James Conner, Darius Slayton, Rondale Moore, and Trey McBride. And Justin has Darren Waller, Hollywood Brown, Paris Campbell, and Michael Wilson. Who would have thought we would be taking Michael at the Senior Bowl, Justin? We'd be taking Michael Wilson in a fantasy draft.
Oh.
All right, Giant Factors are X Factors, but we're a Giants podcast, so we call it Giant Factor. Last time I'll explain that for the year. I'm going Leonard Williams. You're going to be facing guys like Will Hernandez this week. You want to get paid this offseason? Like, again, if there's one player I was really the most disappointed in that like had a standard of being good last week, it was Leonard Williams. Go out there and win and dominate, right? Let's forget week 1. Forget it ever happened. Go out there and win and dominate. I want to get pressure by rushing 4. I want to be in Josh Dobbs' lap, forcing an already inaccurate quarterback to have more inaccurate throws. Create turnovers. Like, we know Dex is good. Kayvon, we talked about him on the mailbag pod. Leonard Williams. You're not even 30 years old yet. Go out there and dominate. You want to get a second contract, man? It starts now. Erase week 1. Get better. And ball out. Leonard Williams, you are my week 2 Giant Factor. Danny, who's your Giant Factor for this week?
Love that pick. My Giant Factor this week is Mark Lewinsky because, Mark, you're not a world beater. No one's expected to be a world beater, but God, you were.
The world beats him
last week. Literally, the world beats. That was one of the worst. We see bad offensive line play. That was up there with the worst offensive line play I've ever seen. Mark, you're better than that. Quite frankly, he's not like what we saw last week type of guy. He sucks, don't get me wrong, but he can be a little bit better than that in my opinion. And you gotta be better than that in my opinion because we just can't happen again. One pass blocking grade last week. Just want to say that again because that's a funny thing. This is supposed to be a Giant Factor, and I'm putting it down. Mark, just block better. That's literally bare minimum asking you to block a little better. Give Daniel Jones a little more time. Pick up stunts. Help Evan Neal because Evan Neal ain't gonna help himself. Mark, just be better. This is the week you gotta be better. If you're not good this week, I don't know what to do with you. But then I feel like there's no point in you being on this team anymore if you suck again this week. So, Mark, do the bare minimum. Give Daniel Jones time. You're a Giant Factor.
A quiet one. I'm glad you picked him, Danny. One, that game was so bad that maybe Lewinsky doesn't even roll out there this week. We didn't talk about that in the top. Like, that was a game that can get you out. But if he has a bad game versus this Cardinals front, and again, it doesn't need to be the level of bad the Cowboys, but if it's just a bad game,
He's done.
You have to bench him. You have to bench him. Oh, for Josh Azudu. Justin, who is your giant factor for week 2?
My giant factor for week 2 is going to be Bobby Okereke. I thought initially about going like Deonte Banks. Like, Deonte Banks, you're covering Hollywood Brown. But then I'm thinking to myself, Wink Martindale is going to throw curveballs. He's going to make Josh Dobbs feel very, very uncomfortable with stacking guys on the line of scrimmage. He'll drop guys into coverage. There'll be some plays where everybody will come, and Dobbs will feel very uncomfortable. So what will the Cardinals do? The Cardinals are going to run the ball, James Conner, and they're going to throw a lot of screens. Bobby Okereke has to be ready to recognize if there are things happening at the line of scrimmage, where guys are going, if Rondale Moore is going in motion and maybe he's going to be getting the ball. He's got to be the guy that his eyes and his head has got to be on a swivel on where the ball is going and where he needs to be. So Bobby Okereke, go out there, be a giant factor, stop the run, keep your head on a swivel, stop these screens, move sideline to sideline, be a giant factor.
All right. Those are your week 2 giant factors. I have a challenge for our people on social media. When we put out who's your giant factor for the game tomorrow, don't say the quarterback. That's not the quarterback is never an X factor. He's like the main factor. Even though it's like I don't care actually. Do whatever you want. Actually, don't listen to me. All right, time for spread picks. The listeners, they went 7-1 in week 1.
Listeners.
They're in first place. Danny, you're at 6-2. And I'm 5-3, so congrats to all 3 of us being above 500 for week 1. Justin didn't even have a bad week. He's a 4-4. But we all have different records after week 1 after that. So, man, 2 years in a row, I might have to rethink picking the Super Bowl champs on the opener.
Can't wait for that 1-0 graphic.
Kadarius Toney screwed me again. I actually went and watched the clip of Tony when they asked him like his obsession with the Giants, and I'm like, man, this is why I kind of like you. Like his response was pretty funny. Like he just smiles. He's like, it's like they troll me, I troll them back. Like, Thursday night football, Vikings at Eagles -6.5. I'm going Eagles -6.5. I think they're gonna overwhelm them up front. Now, here's what I am interested in this game. Even like I still think the Eagles are gonna win. I'm interested to see the Brian Flores defense versus the Eagles. Like, lining up in the line of scrimmage, blitzing the hell out of them, single high safety. I'm interested to see how they fare. Not even like how the Jalen Hurts stats at the end of the night. Just like, how does he deal with that? I think that's going to be a cool look to see. Because the Viking, like, Flores doesn't care who he's playing. He's always going all out with those, like, not even cover 0 looks. He just runs cover 0. But I am going Eagles -6.5. The listeners, represented by Tucker Cherry, are agreeing with me. Justin, who are you going?
I'm Googling very quick to see the final score of the game last year. The Eagles kind of blew them out.
They blew them out.
I'll go, fuck, man. I really want this to be a fun game where it's worth watching to the end, but the Vikings just, like, didn't get better. They were a 13-win team that, like, I wonder, like, what that front office, like, what they thought of last year and how they evaluated after last year. Eagles -6.5. They're weird. Vikings are a weird team.
Danny.
You just can't have fun Thursday night games. It's not allowed in the prime era, especially, and we got Bradbury out for the Vikings. Their offensive line's beat up, and
Bradbury's on the Vikings. Oh, is Garrett Bradbury out?
Sorry. Yeah, Garrett Bradbury's out.
Oh, James Bradbury's out on the Eagles.
Yeah,
is he really?
Both Bradburys are out.
Wow, look at that. And then Darisaul's also out for the Vikings. Basically, I'm saying Eagles are going to dominate, so give me the Eagles +6.5. I forgot what the
Eagles
-6.5.
-6.5.
-6.5.
Gambling expert.
Kenny Gainwell is their starting running back. He's out. I'm interested to see who the number 2 is, whether it's Swift, Boston Scott.
I'd say his name.
Be interested to see who they play more. Chiefs at Jags +3.5, a rematch of the divisional round last year. Justin, who do you got?
Jags +3.5.
Danny, who do you got?
I mean, Travis Kelce's gonna be back this week, so like,
and Chris Jones.
Yeah, so like, realistically, this feels like a game the Chiefs are gonna bounce back. Light rain in Jacksonville, apparently, Who did Jack? Anyone big out? Oh, no, Brandon Sheriff possibly. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm going to take the Chiefs here plus 3.5. Travis Kelce being back
You
and
got
Chris
to.
Jones.
We've been doing this for 2 years. You got two in a row with the minus and plus wrong. You've never done.
Oh,
that
I
before.
did. I've been looking at because I had my other email pulled up, waiting to read something, and then I had to re-pull up my thing for all the spreads.
I'm going Jags. I just got a feeling that even if they lose, they're going to keep it within a field goal. They lost by 7 last year. I know that was the game that Mahomes got hurt on, but I think the Jags keep it tight and might even win this game. So I'm going Jags plus 3.5. Listeners are going Jags as well too. Seahawks at Lions minus 5.5. To me, that spread is too big. I know the Seahawks had a really bad week 1, and the Lions obviously beat the Super Bowl champs. I'm going Seahawks plus 5.5. I think they have a bounce back game. That game, the Seahawks-Lions game last year, was a freaking offensive thriller. So I got the Hawks plus 5.5. The listeners are going Lions. Danny, who are you going?
I'm also going Lions because obviously the Seahawks are kind of beat up along that offensive line. They brought in 41-year-old Jason Peters, I believe, or unless
I wanted us to sign him.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's a guard we can sign that's still out there. Not going to say his name on the pod. But yeah, the Lions, I think they can win this game by a touchdown.
DJ Fluker?
No, I'm talking about Justin Pugh.
Justin Pugh. I feel Justin Pugh is definitely trying to create a media career, and I don't know if anyone wants to hire him.
DJ Fluker actually seems interested in playing football.
But. Yes, yeah. And anyways, Justin, who do you got in this?
Man, I think I'm going to go Lions minus 5.5 too. That was really, really bad against the Rams the first week. And, Seahawks were home too. That's the crazy thing. I know McVay has had the Seahawks number, but Danny mentioned the injuries on the offensive line. I think the Lions are going to overpower them. Danny, I really don't want to read this ad after the spread picks. So can we talk about who's bringing us spread picks this week?
Oh, I mean, thank you, because I've been really wanting to talk about who's bringing us spread picks this week, because it's our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games, and who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? You guessed it, it's DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers get bet $5 on football and get $200 in free bets instantly if they do. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. So what you need to do is get in on the NFL action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code WORLD to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 to take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code WORLD, WORLD. The crown is yours. But guess what? Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus, varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football. Terms for eligibility. Responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire in 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. You would be glad you did.
Be glad you did. Pat Leonard just tweeted this out. Special teams coordinator Thomas McGahey will not talk about the field goal block. Says they watched the film and intend to learn from it. I'm excited to hear the clip for that to see how that interaction went.
That sounds terrible.
So much respect.
Love him.
Ravens at Bengals minus 3.5. By the way, Zay Flowers looked great in week 1. It's like he almost looked better. Like I think he's going to be better, have better stats in the NFL because he doesn't have a horrible offensive line and Phil Jerkovich throwing him the ball. Actually, I don't know if the Ravens' offensive line is good. But I'm going Bengals. Joe Burrow bounce back game. They've had some really big games versus the Ravens in the past. I'm going, and they beat them in the playoffs. I know Lamar wasn't there. I know Zay Flowers wasn't there. I know their current wide receiver 2 wasn't there. But I'm still going Bengals minus 3.5. Danny.
And guess what? The Ravens didn't have OBJ then either, but I'm still taking the Bengals.
I said their wide receiver 2.
But the Bengals need to bounce back. I also need Joe Burrow to bounce back desperately for my fantasy team. So, Joe, I know you listen to Talking Giants. Big time Talking Giants fan told me himself. Please bounce back. I am begging you mightily. Please.
Who's your backup?
Daniel Jones.
That's a good. I don't think
It's not a bad backup. I like it.
DJ's my starter, actually, and I have Anthony Richardson. I draft quarterbacks late, and I have Anthony Richardson as my backup. Got him in the second to last round.
I might
Justin,
start DJ this week, quite
The
frankly.
listeners are going Ravens. Are you agreeing with the listeners who are 7-1, or me and Danny King?
I'm agreeing with you and Danny King. Bengals minus 3.5.
49ers at Rams plus 7.5. Rams are good, or they might be good again. That being said, I'm still going 49ers minus 7.5. They own the Rams. I'm going 49ers. This is are the Rams are good again or not game for me. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, even if the Rams cover this spread at plus 7.5, I'm still I think that's a success and that's a win for the Rams just in terms of what we thought of them heading into the season. I don't know if I buy into it though, because maybe the Seahawks are just worse than what we thought. Even though the Seahawks have good off seasons, 49ers minus 7.5. I feel more comfortable picking 49ers minus 7.5, even though this is a really tough spread and I would never put money on this game. I feel better if I lose picking 49ers minus 7.5 than if the Rams get blown out and then I pick Rams plus 7.5.
The listeners agree with us. Danny, are you going against the grain or with everyone else?
No, I'm not going against Rams. I'm going the Niners here. Like I said, big spread for the Rams to cover, and I don't want to say last week was a fluke because I think Sean McVay can get the best out this current iteration of the Rams, but the 49ers are just better.
Jets at Cowboys minus 9.5. This is low-key the game I'm most interested in this week. Because I want to see that Jets defense, how well they do against a Dallas offense, which isn't great, but not, but it's a good offense, but it's not like an elite offense. And obviously that pass rush for Zach Wilson, I just want to see how the Jets look in this. And I think, I think that defense is good enough to keep them within the spread. So I'm going to go Jets plus 9.5, even though I do think the Cowboys win this game. Danny.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. That line, I know no Aaron Rodgers, obviously, but that line still feels pretty big, especially with a good Jets defense. And here's the thing. The Cowboys didn't really have to do much offensively against the Giants. I know they looked fine, but they didn't really do anything wow you to think I'm not saying the Cowboys are not a good team. I'm not saying that, but I think the Jets defense could keep them in check for 9.5 points. So give me the Jets on this spread.
Even though I just feel a Zach Wilson disaster class, but I think they're going to try and run the ball a ton. Justin, who do you got?
The Jets are in Dallas?
Yes.
I think, right?
Yes.
What did the listeners go with?
The listeners are going Cowboys.
I'll go Cowboys too. I just don't think it's going to be good. Cowboys minus 9.5.
Yeah, I think it's where show me the. Yeah, it's in Dallas.
Okay.
All right, so Justin is going Cowboys. I'm writing it down. Danny, Dolphins at Patriots plus 3. Who do you got?
Patriots didn't look bad in that final second half against the Eagles, but they couldn't capitalize to win the game. I'm going to go Dolphins here. The Dolphins just dominated. Not dominated, but they looked great last week. And what they did against the Chargers, I think they could just absolutely blow the Patriots out the water.
The listeners agree. Dolphins minus 3. I also agree. Again, I think McDaniel, what he did to adjust to what the Chiefs did or the Chargers did against them last year was very impressive. Even though I do think the Patriots are a solid team, I'm going Dolphins. Justin, agreeing with all of us or against the grain?
Yeah, Dolphins are like my fun team in the NFL that I'm watching right now. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, there's no other team that has that. I know there's T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but I think Waddle is better than Higgins, and I think Hill is better than Chase. You could say A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and I think it's the same thing there. I think Waddle's better than Devontae Smith, and I do think Tyreek Hill's the best receiver in the NFL right now, up there with Justin Jefferson. So, plus you have the offensive scheme. So, Dolphins minus 3.
Jalen Waddle is questionable for Sunday night, though. Just want to make that clear.
He's going to play.
Okay.
Source me.
Browns. Browns at Steelers plus 2. The Steelers, Justin, and I think you agreed with me or with my team. I think they could be solid this year. Week 1, I'm all the way off of it. That offensive line is bad, and I kind of remembered why I didn't love Kenny Pickett coming out of the draft. Is he just has a panic about him under pressure, and the Browns are going to bring it. one of the more underrated things, because everyone talked about Deshaun Watson with the Browns, is that they were so bad against the run. They improved their front. I mean, they added Dalvin Tomlinson and Zadarius Smith to that team.
They did.
With already having Myles Garrett. So I'm going Browns -2. I think they torment the Steelers up front all day long. Browns -2. The listeners are going Steelers +2. Justin, who do you got?
It's funny how, we just talked about the Vikings, how I don't think they got better, and two key pieces that they lost were Dalvin Tomlinson and Zadarius Smith. So the Browns took like the only two good defensive players that the Vikings have on defense. Give me the Browns. I don't love it, but man, I like, they don't even need Deshaun Watson. They don't even need a quarterback in this game because they can run the ball. They can, do what they need to do offensively to stay afloat, and then their defense is just going to shut things down.
Danny.
I just learned Dalvin Tomlinson is a Cleveland Brown. The
Yes,
more
he
you
is.
know. I'm taking the Browns as well. I know last week's game, I think that was just the rain, and like you said, the Steelers looked pretty bad against the 49ers. 49ers obviously a better team, but they just did not look good.
All right. It's time for Giants-Cardinals predictions. Danny, what is your score prediction for New York Giants at Arizona Cardinals Week 2?
Gotta have it. Gotta have this game. If you lose this game, this really kind of puts a gloomy outlook on the season in a way. This is 100% a trap game, but the Giants are going to win. They have to. Giants win 21-17. I feel like it's going to be close, and I don't want a close game, but I think that's what we're about to get.
Justin, what do you got?
24-13. We walk away from the game saying, hey, maybe you wanted to beat them by 2 scores, but the game script and running the ball in the second half is what's going to guide the Giants to a comfortable victory, and we're feeling solid after week 2.
There is something that I didn't have to pull out last year that has been something I've pulled out for score predictions every single year up until last year, but the Giants were good.
Ooh.
This game is going to decide if that is pulled out. But guess what? It is week 2. This is the new week 1. We're erasing Dallas from our memory like Thomas McGahee. We're not talking about it anymore. It's over. It's done. Finito. The Giants are more talented than the Arizona Cardinals. They are better coached than the Arizona Cardinals. They have the quarterback advantage over the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants will bounce back. And after losing 40-0 week 1, they will be up in their score plus-minus margin. Giants 77, Cardinals 0. Let's get the season on track and let's win some games. We'll see you on Monday for the first victory podcast of the season. Believe it. We're back. A race Sunday night. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.